Hi everybody, we're now going to do an exercise. So this exercise is write a Python program that prompts the user for two integer values and displays the result of the first number divided by the second with exactly two decimal places displayed. So what are we going to do here? Well, if we want to just make some notes in our code, we can make some comments. For example, get first number, and then we should get the second number, and then we should display the result of the first number divided by the second. Okay, so we can just write, for example, display first number by the second number. Okay, so here we just get have some notes, and you can either make some block commenting here, or some simple commenting with the hashtag. But here we get the first number. So what should we call our first variable? For example, num1 is possible. And then we should use the input function to get the first number, because we want to prompt the user for two values. Okay, so we prompt the user with the input function that we learned in the last video. So we use the input function, and here we have to have a string to communicate with the user, like telling the user what to input. So here we can just write, enter the first integer. Remember some space here. But if we do this, the user will input a number, but the input function returns a string. For example, if we just control enter this, and in our console we see this string from the input function, enter the first integer. Let's input 1 and hit enter, and we see here in our variable explorer that we have a variable called num1, but it's a type string, which means that we cannot calculate with this string or this value, even if the character is 1. So we have to use the int function to transform this string of a character 1 into a number. So here we have the int function, and like wrapping the input function, we control enter that, and we get enter the first integer. Let's enter 2. And here we see that in our variable explorer window, we have a variable called num1. It's now an integer, which means that this value in this variable we can calculate with this value. And that's actually what we want. So now we can get the second number. For example, we can call that num2. This should also be an integer, and this should also be input by the user. But we need the second integer. So here we say, or we tell the user, enter the first integer. The user enters the first integer. Now we tell the user, enter the second integer. We put that value into a different or a second variable. So if we just hit this, or run this, and we want the first integer to be 3, the second integer to be 4, and then we have two variables here, one called num1 containing 3, and the second variable num2 called num2 containing 4. But so far so good. Now we want to display the first number divided by the second number. And we can do that with the print function. So we can do the easy route here and just say num1 divided by num2. But if we do that, we will see that if we hit, for example, 7 and 9, then 7 divided by 9 is 0.777, and so on indefinitely. So we are not getting the proper format that we want. So, and in our exercise, it clearly states with exactly 2 decimal places displayed. So what we can do here is that we can use f strings. So if you want to use f strings, you just have an f and wrap everything in single quotes or double quotes according to text. But we need to remember that if we are going to print a variable or an expression, as in this case, then we have to use the curly brackets to wrap that that expression or that variable name. So what we have here is that if we run this code, we can enter the first integer 6, the second integer is 7, and 6 divided by 7 is 0.85, and so on. We get the exact same number of decimals output here, but with the f strings, we can just, if we go to the expression here, we can provide a format, and we do that after this colon. So if we want there to be exactly 2 decimal places, we can just have a decimal and 2 for number of decimal places. This will then be a decimal number, which is a float, that thereby we have to define this as a float. So this f tells Python to display this as a decimal number. So if we just Control or Shift enter this again, then we can have, for example, 7 divided by 9, and we get exactly 0.78. So that's the result displayed with exactly 2 decimal places. But if we want to have some text to make sure that the user knows what's output, then we can write result and colon and a space here to make this look a bit better. And 7 divided by 9, the result is 0.78.